Good morning.
Morning.
It's nice to be here in the Czech Republic. I deliberately did not choose to use PowerPoints because I really hate PowerPoint presentations. So I will be using the flip chart instead, and hopefully you can follow what I'm going to talk about. Normally I say I need between 1 hour and 5 days. Now, we only have 40 minutes, so I have to choose what I'm going to talk about. And since I never know that in advance, PowerPoint wouldn't work. Anyway, my name is Daniel Ofman. Just to give you a short background, I'm an engineer by education. So I used to graduate at the university in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. I'm Dutch, as you may hear. Unfortunately, I don't speak your language, so you will have to do with my English. I graduated at Eindhoven University, and everybody who graduated there started to work for Philips. And so did I. And I was supposed to know a lot about how to design factories and how to work efficiently and all that kind of stuff. And so I went to factories and explained people how they could do it smarter and more effectively and more efficiently. And I very quickly found out they didn't listen. So I thought, okay, I probably didn't explain it clearly enough, so I explained it again, and they still didn't listen. They still didn't do what I wanted them to do. And then I realized people are not logical. And that triggered a sort of curiosity in me, because I thought, if people are not logical, then why are we doing what we are doing? What makes people behave the way they do? And so I started this search, and having spent 6 years at university, I didn't know anything about people. I didn't know anything about myself, I didn't know anything about psychology or whatever, but I really got very curious. So I have been searching the last 40 years on this subject of what makes people tick. Why do we do what we do? And I came to a few interesting conclusions that I want to share with you. There is a YouTube film of 3 minutes and 21 seconds which explains my theory. So it's very easy. So I will start in a minute to explain what that's all about, and hopefully it will keep you busy the rest of your life. So I'd like to make things simple. I refuse to accept that it has to be difficult, because I think life is simple. So what is this all about? In the late 80s, in Europe, there was this movement about quality improvement programs. And I was involved in that as an engineer. And I realized that quality is not just a matter of quality in a product. Quality also has something to do with quality of people. So on a Tuesday in 1987, during a lunch break, I suddenly got an image in my head. Sometimes I have these images in my head. And I walked back to the group I was working with, and I drew it on a flip chart. So I just came up with this idea and had no clue, no idea how it would change my life. So I will start with that picture and explain what this is all about. The whole idea is that people are born with certain qualities. I call them core qualities. A core quality is something like preciseness, empathy, dedication, persistence. There are hundreds of words for different qualities. And my idea is that we will all born with a few of those core qualities: determination, flexibility, etc. And the idea is that if you can express these qualities in your work, you probably feel good about yourself and you're probably in the right place. So it makes a lot of sense to find out what these core qualities are. Because the beauty of a core quality is that it is effortless. It does not require any effort. If you were born with preciseness, you will be precise anyway. In any situation, it does not require an effort. And that's handy, because that makes life easy. So when I started with this idea, I sometimes asked people to stand up and say, what are the qualities you were born with? And it was silent. because people either didn't know or they wouldn't say. It would be very unlikely that somebody would stand up and said, my core qualities are flexibility, determination, and empathy. Because if you had the guts to say that, most likely your neighbor might whisper something like, well, we are not living in a society where it is easy to explain what you're good at. So that's why it is interesting to realize that you have a number of presents. With your core quality, you got a number of presents. So let's start. This idea is that you have a core quality. And please don't limit yourself to one. You have more than one. Let's, for example, say your core quality is determination. Determination. That's nice if you have that. All those qualities that exist are nice to have. If you were born with that quality, to be determined will be easy. It will be your nature. So it's nice. For the first gift you get with your core quality is your pitfall. Because your pitfall is simply too much of something good. There is no quality that cannot become distorted. Like determination, if you become too determined, you may end up being pushiness. Maybe that is your pitfall. Maybe it's another word. From one quality you can get different pitfalls. So, there's nobody who doesn't have a pitfall. Only once in the last 20 years there was somebody who said, I have no pitfall. And then his neighbor whispered, just loud enough so that everybody could hear it, how about arrogance? And he said with a very arrogant expression on his face, I'm not arrogant at all. So there are hopeless cases, but there are very, very few people who would deny that they have a pitfall. If the only thing you take from this 45 minutes, the idea that when you see something you don't like in a person, it is always too much of something valuable, it would change the world. If you would realize that whatever you see that you don't like is always too much of something valuable. So if you don't know your core qualities yet, just ask yourself, what do I hear when people say, don't be so da-da-da-dum? What do you hear? Don't be so this or that. Fill it in here and ask yourself, of what is it too much? And you probably already have one of your core qualities. So it's not that difficult to find out. So it would be nice if we would be a little bit more relaxed and realize that whatever the beautiful side of you is, you also have a shadow side. I did not invent that. That is a cosmic principle. We all have both sides. We have a beautiful side and we have a less beautiful side, and they go hand in hand. So why not simply accept that? So that's the first. Consider your pitfall as a gift. The second gift is your challenge. And your challenge is simply the opposite of your pitfall. So if you have pushiness as a pitfall, your challenge may be not being pushy at all, and the positive version of that is something like patience or calmness, quietness, something more slowly. This is very determined and this is more patient. If that is your challenge, your assignment in life is to find this space where those two come together, where you are both at the same time, where you are determinedly patient or patiently determined. If you can find that space inside yourself, you are in balance. That is what this is all about. And if you are in balance, you're highly and very effective. It's beautiful to be both determined and patient at the same time. So that's a journey. That you don't find that easy, what that is. What messes up this whole thing is that some people have too much of this as well. Too much. And they are so patient. drives these people nuts, because that is your allergy. That's what you cannot stand, that's what you hate the most, because people who are too patient are something like passive, have apathy, or, so they don't move at all, something like passivity, which is the opposite of your core quality. This is called a core quadrant. And a core quadrant is, as I explained it in a few minutes, is the basis of what I'm going to talk about. The idea is you have qualities, you have pitfalls, you have challenges, and you have allergies, and somehow there is a sort of internal logic inside us that's easy to find out and very neat to find out. This is now being taught in the Netherlands, in universities, higher education, high schools, and even primary schools. Kids of 12 years can learn this. And they suddenly find out, now I understand why daddy is so angry, because daddy has an allergy as well. So they start to look at life through these quadrants. It's easy to teach, but it's not easy to live. Because as I said, this is the point, this is your goal, to find the balance between your quality and your challenge. Now, in the quadrant itself, there are a few interesting messages. The first message is you can learn the most from the people you are allergic to, because they have too much of something that you need. So why not get more interested in the people that you get really angry about, irritated about. My first boss in Philips was a man that I really didn't like. So after a year, I decided to move to another department. And to my surprise, my boss moved with me. So he became the boss the second time. Then I decided a year later to go to another city in a factory. And to my surprise, my boss became the plant manager. So 3 times he was my boss. That moment I realized that there must be something in this for me to learn, else it wouldn't happen. But I didn't know the core quadrant as a concept. But this guy had a quality which exactly fitted my challenge. But it also fitted my allergy. So I couldn't stand the guy. So you can learn the most from the people you dislike the most. A funny thing is, most likely, people are married to their own challenge. It could well be that the core quality of your life partner or best friend is your challenge. Because that's why you are attracted to somebody. That other person has a quality that complements you, and together you are more complete. That's why people fall in love. You find something in the other person that makes you more whole, that attracts. But the sadness, of course, is that if you are married to your own challenge, you're also married to your own allergy. That's the less, the side that people only find out later. So after a few weeks, maybe a few months or a few years, then you find out that the core quality of your partner is your challenge, and he or she has the opposite quadrant. Maybe has patience as a quality, maybe passivity as a pitfall, maybe determination as a challenge, and maybe pushiness as an allergy. So you fit perfectly together, but you also dislike each other. So after a while, he starts to say to her, "Don't be so passive," and she says to him, "Don't be so pushy," and you get this sort of interaction, which happens all the time. Core quadrants are now being used in couple therapy. Every couple therapy treatment is all about core qualities, because you will find out that most likely this is happening. So I was married to my own challenge for 28 years. And we had a fantastic time because we really complemented each other. And we also had a difficult time fighting each other. Now I got remarried, my present wife, we are very, very similar, which is a completely different experience. So I sort of married myself. And that's actually not a bad idea. So you can try this out. By the way, before I forget, if you go home tonight and you go to your partner and say, look, honey, I learned something today, and you explain your core quadrant to that person, now I understand and you tell your pitfall and you say how you complement each other. It has happened really that people got home very inspired after a day like this, and the partner would explode in anger. He said, this is something I have been trying to tell you for 15 years. Now you go away for one day and you explain what you discovered. This is what I have been trying to tell you. So if that's the case, please give your partner some credit, because it helps. This doesn't only work in relationships, it works in companies, it works in anywhere where there are people working together. You have these dynamics. So, this is one thing. You probably are married to your own challenge. You can also read in a core quality what happens if you put people under stress. Under stress, determined people first become pushy. This is alarm phase 1. If you don't notice it, most likely there comes a point that the determined person first becomes pushy, and then it flips. Alarm phase 2. And you say, oh, what the heck, I don't care. You don't expect that from a person with this kind of quality. So if you see somebody showing behavior that you, I would never expect that, it's probably alarm phase 2. If you still don't get it, phase 3 is a crisis. Somehow, you either get a burnout, or you make stupid mistakes, or you mess up something, you get an accident, or you get sick. Something like that may happen. This is something you can expect, you can predict, and you can see once you start to discover the different core qualities of yourself, the different core quadrants. So it's another thing that is easy to identify. Why is it so difficult for a determined person to develop patience? Why? How come? It is because we have the tendency to confuse these two. Determined people have the tendency to think that patience is the same as doing nothing. And since you dislike this, you won't get access to that. So it's, again, an easy way to find out why it is so hard. Because your problem is not your pitfall. Your problem is your allergy. Because it is your allergy that drives you into your pitfall. A determined person who thinks that he sees passivity is already in his pitfall, most likely. And that's not because people are bad. It's because we are unconscious. We don't see. We don't realize that this is what's going on. That's why a core quadrant is easy to teach in 10 minutes, but it takes a lifetime to find this balance between your quality and your challenge. But it's a very nice way to work with this. Now, if you use this with yourself or other people, there's one thing I really want you to be aware of, and that is look at your challenge and then ask yourself, is this something that I say, yeah, that would be good for me? Or is it something that you say, wow, that would be wonderful if I had that? Most people, when they make their first quadrants, come up with a challenge that say, yeah, that's good. If you have a challenge that is useful, you have the wrong challenge. And the reason why is because if you have a challenge that, yeah, that's good, most likely it is good because it would help you to get rid of your pitfall. In other words, you are trying to fix a problem in yourself. In other words, you're trying to change yourself. This is not about changing yourself. This is about finding out who you are, realizing that you have all these aspects in yourself, but it's not about change as a goal. My statement is, change cannot be a goal, change is an effect. In your inner world, change is an effect. And it is the effect of getting to know yourself in those terms, and accepting what you see. Accepting that you have qualities, pitfalls, challenges, and allergies, not with the objective to change, but the simple objective to get to know yourself. Then, as a result, you will change. And I can say that because I really spent 15 years working on myself. That's a habit nowadays. People are working on themselves. We should improve, and we should develop, and we should develop people. Development becomes a goal. And it means that, you have to work on your challenge. I worked on myself for 15 years. And after 15 years, I thought, I'm not getting anywhere. And my environment agreed. So they also saw that. And then there came a point that I thought, but what if I can accept myself as I am? I'm not perfect. I'm not balanced. I'm most of the time out of balance. But what if I'm okay being incomplete? And the funny thing is, the moment I gave up trying to change, I changed as a result, as an effect. This is a very important message for me to HR people, because I see a lot of HR people in organizations trying to help people to change. And my message is, please stop making change a goal. Make change an effect, and make sure that people spend time reflecting, finding out who they are, learning to accept themselves, and trust that they will change. This is against a lot of the things that I see in the HR world. We in the Netherlands, we have personal development plans. You have those? POP, PDPs, personal development plans? That's a ridiculous invention. Because it means a personal development plan is a plan to change. That means your goal is you're not okay as you are, you must change. So people, they're going to work on their challenge as the result of a personal development plan. It doesn't work. So, hopefully a core quadrant helps people to find out who they are, what they're really good at, what they would like to add to it, because you don't have to get rid of anything. If this is your quadrant, of one of your core quadrants, be determined, be fully determined, don't change it. If you find yourself being pushy, don't say to yourself, I should not be so pushy. Don't focus on what you want to get rid of. Focus on what you want to add to your life, rather than fight. That's a huge difference from what I often see in organizations. Make sure you focus on what's worthwhile and what you want to add to it. It's much more fun, and it's much more effective. So core quadrants can really help you to develop yourself. It's interesting to realize that the word development literally doesn't say anything about change. Development is to, rather than envelop, to take away what is enveloped, to develop. Take away the rubbish around it so that you can look what's inside. But it doesn't say, it's not about change. Development is not about change. Change is an effect. Anyway, this is one of the things that you can easily play with. Of course, this also works for not only individuals, this also works for groups. You can easily make a quadrant of a group if you start to look at what is our collective quality, what is our collective pitfall, what is our collective challenge, and what is our collective allergy. And whether you do that in a project team, a department, a division, a company, a nation. I worked with this 2 weeks ago in Sweden, and we talked about the Swedish core quadrant. What are you good at? Swedish people are very good at having consensus. That's one of their core qualities. The pitfall of that is it takes a long time to take decisions. So it's this sort of indecisiveness. Their challenge was to take more risks, to stick out your neck. And the allergy was really funny when we talk, so what's your allergy? And they all said at the same time, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is a soccer player, football player, you probably know. Swedish guy who has the guts to speak about himself as if he's God. It hits the collective elegy of the Swedish people, because that's not what you're supposed to do. That's what they are allergic to. And they also realize that this guy has something they could use. So you can apply this to any entity. It's an individual, a one-on-one relationship, a group, a division. That's why we introduce this always in project teams. Why? If you work in a project team, as the deadline comes closer, the tension increases. As the tension increases, the likeliness of people going into their pitfall increases as well. So we spent quite some time in project teams to find out what are the dynamics that we can expect as we come closer to the deadline. Because that's the moment we have the highest risk of getting into our pitfalls. And that's exactly the time when you cannot afford it. So why not invest up front to spend some time on as a sort of risk analysis? Here we have a team of 7 people. What are the dynamics that are going to happen between people? So there are many ways in which you can use quadrants. Cultural quadrants. I have used this in merging situations, in takeovers. I'm surprised all the time how little awareness there is about the collective energy or the collective allergy of a department. It's not difficult to identify what we need together. With a cultural quadrant, you can easily find, this is what we all would help us. But the first person who starts to behave like this will trigger the collective allergy. That's why these people will be thrown out. So what I often see is that, okay, we get somebody in who presents the collective challenge, and we think that it helps. But it will only help if that person has a lot of awareness about himself. Because if he's not, if that person is exactly the opposite quadrant of your cultural quadrant, you're in for trouble. Not too long ago, I read in a newspaper a large company where the CEO finally had decided, after 10 years running this company by himself, said, from now on, I'm going to do that with somebody else. So we are now a couple. So 2 guys running the business. And it's so wonderful because we complement each other. And as soon as I hear that, complementing each other, something inside starts to think, what you don't see is, if you complement each other, you also don't like each other. So the guy joined the company, they run the business a year together, and after a year in the newspaper it said, because of health reasons we have decided to split up again. It had nothing to do with health reasons. It had to do with results were staying behind, tension increases, people start to blame each other, and the original enthusiasm is gone. You can predict all this. And it's really handy if you are in recruitment or in a consulting role or a coaching role. This is being used in coaching programs all over the world at the moment. So it's easy, it's a very powerful tool, it's very simple, and it's not easy to live. So finally, what we usually do is I have a mat, and we can talk about this endlessly, about your qualities and challenges. But when you walk your quadrant here, imagine that on the floor you have those 4 boxes. You step into your quality, you talk about it, you go to your pitfall, you talk about it, you go to your challenge and your allergy, and you play with these sort of energy fields. And sometimes what happens is that people go into their challenge and they suddenly become very alive. And then say, hey, this doesn't look like a challenge. Could it be that what you think is your challenge is actually your core quality? And the whole thing flips. And it's not easy to identify that talking about it, but walking quadrants is a different game. That's why before you start applying this in organizations, and there are in the Netherlands at least 1 million people who know about core quadrants. And there's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of where the quadrant is too superficial. So there's a lot to explore further and dig more into, is this really you? Because our behavior is partly nature, your core quality, and partly nurture, that came from outside. And the outside stuff, for example, I can be very determined, but it's not my core quality. It is something I have learned. It is something I have acquired. It's something I practiced, so I have learned to become more determined. But it's not effortless. It doesn't come natural. But I'm good at it. So to sort of peel your inner world apart and to look at what's nature and what's nurture takes more than 5 minutes. As I said before, it may take a lifetime. So exploring yourself, exploring your organization, looking at different aspects of yourself can be a lot of fun and very, very, very productive. I was involved in the merging. There's a large company in the Netherlands called DSM, and they are in the business of life science, and they acquired another company called GB, who produces antibiotics. And it said again in the newspaper, we're so happy that we are merging because we complement each other. And again, I thought, oh man, this is going to be hard. So after 100 days, the original enthusiasm was completely gone. Because they started to dislike each other. They suddenly realized they had mutual allergies. And the DSM people called the GB people cowboys. You mess up the systems, you screw up everything. And the GB people told the DSM people as a bunch of bureaucrats. So there was a lot of mutual blaming. And then we were in a group of 100 people after the first 100 days. And I put them in groups and said, I want you to make 4 quadrants. Make a quadrant of your own company. Make a quadrant of how you perceive the other company. Make a 3rd quadrant of how you think they look at themselves. And make a 4th quadrant of how you think they look at you. So in small groups, they had made 4 quadrants. Then we projected all of those quadrants on the screen, one by one, and people had a score sheet. So they could say, oh, this is probably DSM about themselves, and and in the end, I gave the right answers, and the winner won a bottle of whiskey. So it was partly a game, but in all those screens, it became so obvious that these 2 companies complement each other, and they really disliked each other. And when they saw the dynamics of the core quadrant in their own different cultures, the whole energy shifted from being reactive to become more curious again, into, hey, this could work very well. And it is simply all about being aware. It's not about doing anything. The most important message is invest in this kind of stuff. Invest in reflecting. Make reflection a part of your life as an individual, as a department, as a company. Spend some time to sometimes stop and think back, how are we doing? Are we still doing fine? Are we still creating energy? Are we still vital? Are we still, having fun together? And it may save an awful lot of waste of energy. Anyway, this is, in a few words, core quadrants. There's a lot more to say about. I would love to work with walking quadrants. That's why you have a 3-day program if you're interested in this kind of stuff. But I think for now it's enough. You have this green booklet that you got. I'm very happy that today is the first day that it's now available in the Czech language. So you're the first ones to have one. It's being given by Krauthammer. You can see them here in the stand. It's their present to you. And it's more or less what I've been talking about in the last 45 minutes. So hopefully it will inspire you. It may change your life. It's up to you what you do with it. Thank you for paying attention. Maybe there are some questions.
Thank you very much, Daniel. We have some questions here, so we can discuss it. What is the best way to identify the core quality? The
way to identify the core quality? The easiest way for most people is to start with your allergy. Because everybody knows their allergy. Most people don't know their core qualities. But if you simply think, what pisses me off? What's the thing that really irritates me? Fill it in and start to ask yourself, what is it too much? What's the opposite? And build your quadrants from that part. But that's, for most people, the easiest. But it really doesn't matter. You can start anywhere you like. You can also start at your pitfall. As I said before, you say, what do you hear when people say, don't be so Listen sometimes to your partner when he or she tells you this, don't be so this or that. Fill it in and build your quadrants from there. If you want to start with your challenge, just ask yourself, what do I admire in another person? Most likely that is your challenge. It could be your starting point. Maybe you already know your core qualities and you can start there. So pick the easiest entry point and sort of follow the logic in the quadrant.
Second one is it possible for two people both aware of their complementing quadrants and are both self-aware to work all well together without triggering their allergies?
You will trigger allergies and other people will trigger your allergies. Don't try to solve anything, don't try to get rid of it. Learn to live with it, and once you know this, once you are aware of it, it will make you more tolerant, it will make you more mild, because you understand that you have allergies and pitfalls, the other person has that. Nobody is perfect. I mean, I sometimes work with an Aikido teacher, and this guy says, I'm always out of balance, but I recover so fast that nobody notices. That's exactly the right attitude. Don't try to change, don't try to fix anything. Just become aware and accept what you see. And that is more difficult than working on yourself. Because the main reason why people are working on themselves all the time is by working on yourself, you keep the illusion alive that you are in control. And you are not. So you better accept yourself. But it's difficult. That's more difficult.
Your theory reminds me of Jung. Is it so?
It's funny. It could be. I mean, I have to confess something. I never read anything. So, but sometimes some people say, is this Buddhist? I said, could be. Is it Jung? Could be. There's a lot of. I mean, I'm convinced that why is this going all over the world? Because it is a universal principle. I did not invent this. This is how it has always been. I just happened to give it words. That's why many people in different teaching recognize bits and pieces of what I'm talking about. So, yeah, that's my answer to that.
So, what if the core quality and also challenge of the partner are the same as mine? Is it toxic?
Well, like me and my wife. We are very similar.
28 years.
The reason why it works between us is because we are very similar. If you are married to your counterpart, then you correct each other easily. We don't correct each other because we both go into our pitfall. There's no mechanism in our relationship that prevents that. So it only works because we are both very aware of what's happening. So without awareness, it's not going to work. Again, because this mechanism isn't there. So, yeah.
How to identify the allergy root cause?
the allergy root cause, usually your allergy is something you despise. It's something you want to get rid of. It's almost like, for a determined person, passivity is something which should be eradicated. It's like you are on a crusade against passivity, and if you don't watch out, you do it in a very pushy way. So it's the root cause is usually because you hate it, you despise it. So be aware of your own judgments, because you have a lot of judgments about your allergy, and it is your own judgments that make you weak, because they usually trigger your pitfall. So get to know your own judgments, and that helps. But again, easy to say, but to do that and to live it is a different story.
So, Daniel, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's a few questions, I think. Well, thank you for paying attention. Have fun with quadrants and enrich your life. Thank you.